I hadn't heard.
Just wanted you to.
Yeah, I heard.
I wasn't on the list.
Yes, it is.
Hey.
Hi, Chuck.
Hi. Oh,
Well-
I should have worn my beautiful lei. red one.
I know.
I wore clothes. I forgot,
Because I think in times like these, the aloha spirit is really important.
I forgot to tell the group that I wore red, white, and blue for Hawaii flag. Forgot.
Are you guys done?
Okay.
All right. There are no two ways about it. Republicans intend to ban abortion nationwide. And it's not just me saying that, because they have made their plan public for all the world to see, plain as day. It's called Project 2025, the radical and detailed agenda that a far-right alliance is preparing to implement under a second Trump administration. My colleagues are going to have a lot more to say about how alarming this agenda is, but to give you an idea, they want to stack our courts with far-right judges who've been specifically vetted for anti-abortion views and rubber-stamped by extreme anti-choice groups. They want to try to misuse the 1873 Comstock Act, which the Department of Justice has repeatedly made clear does not apply, as a backdoor way to ban abortion nationwide by criminally prosecuting people for mailing medication abortion and potentially even the medical supplies necessary for abortion care. They want to take Title X funding away from trusted healthcare providers and give it to centers that lie to women to pressure them out of getting abortions. They want to have FDA reverse its approval of medication abortion completely, cutting off access in every single state in the most common method of abortion. They want a new regime of invasive abortion data tracking, giving a hostile federal government sensitive information about women seeking necessary health care. They want to refuse to enforce federal laws that say women in medical emergencies can get abortion care if it's necessary to save their health and life. And they will attack access to and insurance coverage of contraception, ripping birth control away from women in every state, especially low-income women. So to recap, right now, Donald Trump and his allies are planning a detailed roadmap, they've given it out, to rip away a woman's right to choose in every single state in America should they take power. Not just with legislation, by the way. They don't even need Congress to pass bills for most of it. They will try to do this with just Donald Trump in the White House wielding the power of the presidency. That is how dangerous this is. So here's what Americans need to understand. Abortion rights are absolutely on the ballot in November in every single state, and Project 2025 leaves no doubt. You can go read about it yourself. So if you want to stand up for abortion rights in America, you need to use your voice and your vote. With that, I will turn it over to our leader, Senator Chuck Schumer.
Thank you, Patty. Thank you very much. And next month, we will continue our crusade to protect women's reproductive freedoms. The Republicans don't want to talk about it, but they're going to have to vote on it, plain and simple. Here's what they think. They say, this is the Republican plan, we don't need a federal ban when we have the Comstock Act on the books. There's a smorgasbord of options. I think the pro-life groups should keep their mouths shut as much as possible until the election. Our Republican colleagues may not want to talk about this issue because they know they're on the wrong side. They know their goal is to enact a nationwide abortion ban, but we're going to force them to vote on it. We're going to this is not a show vote. This is a show who you are vote, and we're going to show just who the Republicans are. And if you don't believe us, ask Donald Trump. Here's what he said. After 50 years of failure, with no one coming even close, I was able to kill Roe v. Wade, much to the shock of everyone. Without me, the pro-life movement would have just kept losing. That's probably true of Mitch McConnell. It's true of Mitch McConnell and all the Republican leaders. So I want to thank Senator Murray and all of my colleagues for being here, for their tireless work to fight back against Republicans' relentless attack on reproductive freedom. As we approach the 2-year anniversary of Roe, which will occur on June 24th, many of us are doing events in our states about that issue. As we approach the 2-year anniversary of Roe, being overturned this month could have been a month when the Senate came together to protect Americans' reproductive freedoms. It could have been a month when both sides came together to pass common sense legislation protecting reproductive care like contraception and IVF. It could have been a month when we put to rest the worries of the millions of women across America enduring attacks on their reproductive freedom in the aftermath of Roe. But instead, June has been a dismal month for MAGA Republicans and their attacks on women, families, and reproductive rights, because Senate Democrats are forcing them to vote and show who they are and what they believe. And it's shocking to many Americans that they wouldn't protect the right to contraception, they wouldn't protect the right to IVF, and they wouldn't protect the right to have an abortion. In the last 2 weeks, Senate Republicans have shown that for all their attempts to sound moderate on reproductive care, when it comes time to vote, they choose MAGA extremism. We tell America, look at how they vote, not by how they talk or how they zip up their mouths and refuse to talk about this issue. When Republicans block protections for IVF, as they did a few days ago, they chose MAGA extremism over the American people. When they block protections for contraception, a few weeks ago, they chose MAGA extremism over the American people. These hard-right extremists are hell-bent on restricting every reproductive right on the books if they take control in November. And they went so far to put it in writing. Listen to this. They've outlined extreme plans in Project 2025. Read it. See how extreme it is. And that's the plan crafted by Trump allies and former Trump administration officials, and it speaks for the Republican Party, unfortunately, with rare exception, as a whole. So we have to fight back. It's why yesterday I took the first procedural step to place on the legislative calendar the Reproductive Freedom for Women Act, sponsored by Senator Murray, myself, and co-sponsored by every Democratic woman in the Senate on our side of the aisle. The measure affirms a woman's fundamental right to choose and calls for enshrining the protections of Roe into law, which the overwhelming majority of Americans want. I will work with my colleagues to bring it to the floor as soon as possible. In short, we don't have time to waste. When Donald Trump continues to this day to brag about working with Senate Republicans to confirm 3 right-hard Republican justices who eliminate Roe, we know the Republicans will never stop choosing MAGA extremism over the American people. But Republicans can't run away from the basic truth. Their record on women's health care is outright abysmal, it is shameful, and dangerously out of step with the views of Americans. But we assure America, we in the Democratic caucus, led by these great senators, are going to keep fighting and standing up for the American people and standing up for reproductive rights. Senator Stabenow.
Well, thank you so much, Senator Schumer, and thank you, Senator Murray, for bringing us together. This is all hands-on-deck moment in terms of women having the freedom to make our own reproductive health decisions. In fact, for any American to have the freedom to make their own reproductive health decisions. That's what this is all about. And both Senator Murray, Senator Schumer have talked in the big picture of everything that's at stake. I want to focus on one specific piece, and that is mifepristone, who is the medicine that is used most often for early stage abortion. Last week, we were able to breathe a temporary sigh of relief that the Supreme Court didn't restrict mifepristone, but we know it was only on legal issues of standing, and that they gave a roadmap about how to come back to the court. But we also know this drug is safe, it's effective, it's been used in over half the abortions in the United States for more than 20 years. That's the reality. It's also used by women suffering from endometriosis, from cancer, from anemia, and miscarriages. And one woman, that Larissa, who spoke with me, talked about experiencing multiple heartbreaking miscarriages, and she needed to use mifepristone to complete the miscarriages so she could try to get pregnant again. This wasn't about an abortion. It was about having a process that would allow her to be able to be healthy and have another baby. She said mifepristone is sometimes used as, quote, part of the puzzle of people having families. After years of trying, Larissa and her family now have a beautiful daughter, and they are so pleased that they were able to do this and use this important drug. But unfortunately, this ruling leaves a question mark about what's going to happen down the road. Now, we know that it's not going to stop new legal challenges for the drug. And we also know, more importantly, this, that if Donald Trump is in the White House next year, there is no doubt that he and Republicans will continue to use every tool possible to ban mifepristone, as has been shown by these quotes, including restricting the shipment of this life-saving drug to women across the country. And his administration will try to revoke the original decision of the FDA in 2000, the approval of mifepristone. So there's no doubt he's going to continue his assault on all of our reproductive freedoms. And he has said he's proudly the person responsible for ending Roe, proud to put the lives of millions of women at risk, proud to take this freedom away from millions and millions of women. Today, 1 in 3 women now live under extreme and dangerous abortion bans. And if you think they're going to stop there, you have not been listening to them. So we are completely committed, working with our president and vice president. We are working every day to defend Americans' freedom to make decisions for themselves, whether it's reproductive health care, whether it's decisions on who they love or where they live or what their futures are going to be. These are basic freedoms for Americans, and we are committed to making sure Americans do not lose these freedoms in the long run. Senator Klobuchar.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator Stabenow. Thank you, Senator Murray, Senator Schumer, and my colleagues here. I think everyone remembers where they were when they found out that this decision was real, that it wasn't just a leaked opinion 2 years ago. I was getting my hair cut, and all the women there that were around me going, what? And from that day on, we predicted what would happen, and it has sadly really all come true. We predicted back then that we were going to see a patchwork of laws. And we have a presidential candidate in Donald Trump that is calling for giving it back to the states. So, well, what does that mean? You've got, when you look at what the states are doing, women turned away from emergency rooms, sitting in cars waiting for care, doctors being threatened with prosecutions for doing their jobs, access to fertility treatments at risk. And we thank our colleague, Senator Duckworth, for her leadership on that bill. State by state by state, in all of these states, whereas my colleagues just point out, we have 1/3 of women of reproductive age now living under extreme bans and dangerous bans. That's what's happened. The other thing that we predicted that would happen is women across this country are confused because they're waiting and waiting for what is the next court case going to say. Well, we thought we didn't have mifepristone in Texas, but now I guess it's okay because of this appeal and that appeal. This is no way to protect people's rights. Getting me to my topic with is judges. Reproductive rights are in jeopardy because we have an extreme Supreme Court with Trump-appointed judges that overturned 50 years of precedent, overturned Roe v. Wade. And if you look to a future and you look at that plan they put in place and you look at the stuff that's out there, we would see more judges the same. Several other states like Idaho, Kansas, Missouri are pursuing litigation like we saw in Texas on mifepristone. And that's why every judge we confirm makes a difference. As a member of the Judiciary Committee, proud we have confirmed over 200 judges, but it isn't just the quantity, it's also about the quality. We know the American people are with us. They are with us on having judges in place that actually respect the law. They are with us on choice. Since Dobbs, voters from Ohio to Kansas have stood with us. And the best solution here is to codify Roe v. Wade into law and to continue to put judges on the court that actually wish to respect the law. Thank you.
All right, Senator Hirono.
You're up.
Thank you. The chaos that was wrought with the decision in Dobbs overturning Roe is really all about gaining power and control over women and our bodies. Does it surprise you that Donald Trump is all in on all of these efforts to gain power and control over women's bodies and lives? Shouldn't come as a surprise to any of us. So Dobbs sowed chaos across our country, but it foretold more chaos to come. And in his Dobbs concurrence, Justice Thomas called for the court to, quote, reconsider other privacy rights, including the right to contraception. Now, Donald Trump and his allies are making clear that if they regain power, they're coming after contraception. And Project 2025 is their blueprint. I ask all the members of the press, take a look at what's contained in Project 2025. This is a blueprint for what the MAGA Republicans and Donald Trump and his ilk want to do to the rest of us in this country. This is a blueprint. So to start, they want to rename the Department of Health and Human Services the Department of Life. Let that sink in. They'll reclassify common forms of contraceptives like Plan B as abortificants. I can't even say the word, but you know what I mean. To make it as difficult as possible to access contraceptives. And they'll try to redirect federal funds from Title X family planning programs to so-called crisis pregnancy centers that manipulate women in need of basic maternal guidance, medical guidance. And what's worse, Project 2025 calls for cutting off Medicaid funding for Planned Parenthood, despite the fact that Planned Parenthood is often the only option for women with low income seeking contraceptives. This isn't about protecting life, it's about power and control, and the Republicans' obsession with controlling women's bodies. So this isn't hypothetical. MAGA Republicans are telling us exactly what they plan to do. They're not just going after abortion, making abortion illegal throughout the country, but they are going after just about every other way that women can make decisions about our lives. That includes contraception. And that is why the Democrats are fighting to codify our reproductive rights and sound the alarm. Next is
Very good. Next.
Senator Rosen?
No, it's Tammy.
Sorry. Senator Duckworth.
Got it?
Thank you, Senator Hirono. Hi, everyone. So 10 years ago, when I was going through one of my rounds of IVF, my fertility doctor said, if personhood, this idea of personhood, where a fertilized egg is a human being with equal rights to you, takes hold, then we can't do what we're doing today, which is discarding 3 of the 5 fertilized eggs that we had retrieved because they were non-viable. They had stopped growing. And if he had implanted those in me, they would have caused miscarriages. He said this could potentially be manslaughter and murder. That was 10 years ago. 3 years ago, before the Dobbs decision came down, as the arguments were being heard, the Association for Reproductive Medicine put out a bulletin to all of their members, practitioners in reproductive medicine, and said, hey, just so you know, if Dobbs does actually pass and Roe v. Wade is overturned, you might want to reconsider practicing medicine in these red states, because with the fall of Roe, you could potentially be put into legal jeopardy. This came out from the Association for Reproductive Medicine, formally to all of their doctors. And now we see it happening. We see doctors leaving all of these red states, moving away because they can no longer practice medicine. We see women not being able to access basic reproductive health care. So, as we prepare to mark the 2-year anniversary of the Dobbs decision, I find myself getting more and more mad every single day because we've seen this coming. They've been telling us this is what they're going to do. Yet, for months now, Republicans have been running to cable news shows telling every camera in sight, just like their ringmaster Donald Trump has been doing, that no one cares about women more than they do, that no one cares more about defending women's rights than they do, and that all they want to do in this scary post-Alabama ruling reality is to defend Americans' access to IVF. But for anyone who's paying any attention, you know that's not true. That is a lie. Until you solve the problem of personhood and a fertilized egg being a human child, then you don't get to the point where women can have safe access to reproductive health care, to assisted reproductive technology, to safe and abortions if needed. Just last Thursday, my Republican colleagues blocked my Right to IVF Act, which would have enshrined into law the simple standard that no hopeful parent or doctor can be criminalized for IVF. If Republicans actually cared as much about protecting IVF as they do about protecting Donald Trump's ego, this would have been a simple yes vote. If they actually wanted to find a real fix to this crisis that countless Americans are facing, they would have joined me in passing this very obvious solution. Because the threat to IVF isn't some far-fetched hypothetical. As GOP legislatures, courts, and the Extremist Project 2025 have made all too clear, this threat is already a real-life nightmare for countless women who are now forced to live in fear that Republican success come this November would even further imperil their right to try to create a family, to try to create a child. Hopeful moms who remain unsure whether living in a red state under a Trump presidency could mean getting jail time for committing the supposed sin of needing modern medicine to help bring into the world a baby that they want to love and cherish, a baby that they've dreamt of for years. So when someone shows you who they are the first time, believe them. That's how the saying goes. Well, Republicans have shown us who they are 1, 2, 3, 4,000 times. When the rubber meets the road and we ask not for just for empty words on Twitter, but for their vote, they won't lift a finger to protect women in this country. As a mom who struggled with infertility and needed IVF to have my 2 beautiful little girls, all I can say to my Republican colleagues in this moment is, how dare you continue to lie to the American people? How dare you continue to dash the hopes of so many families looking to have that precious child? And I wish you luck as you try to excuse your hypocrisy to every one of your constituents back home who are facing the heart-wrenching struggle of trying to have their own little girl or boy to cuddle and love, who are terrified that your blind loyalty to Trump may have just snatched that dream away from them. Shame on you. And now I'll pass it to Senator Rosen.
Well, I want to thank Senator Murray and all of my colleagues here today for the work that they do on this issue and so many others. But today we're talking about women's fundamental freedom. And as my colleagues have already made clear, overturning Roe v. Wade was just the beginning of anti-choice extremist attacks on women's reproductive freedoms. In the last 2 years, we've seen politicians pushing to enact more restrictions on women and their health care. You've heard my colleagues speak about it. Even here in the Senate, a nationwide abortion ban has been introduced by anti-choice Republicans and would severely limit women's reproductive freedom in all states, including a pro-choice state like mine, Nevada. At the same time, we've seen states around the country enact extreme and highly restrictive abortion bans, some even without exceptions for rape or incest. And even when they claim to have exceptions for life of the mother, we know that in practice, this is not the case. The lack of clarity about what constitutes a medical emergency forces doctors today to consult lawyers before they're able to provide care for women whose lives depend on it. In Texas, because of the state's extreme abortion ban, a woman who was going through a miscarriage when she was 4 months pregnant had to wait 24 hours in a hospital. 24 hours in a hospital. She's having a miscarriage. She developed sepsis before she could receive the life-saving care she desperately needed before the doctors had to do their consultation. And sadly, it could get even worse. Right now, anti-choice extremists are attacking the fundamental right for a pregnant woman to receive proper medical care in an emergency. Think about that. They want the Supreme Court to overturn EMTALA, a decades-old federal law that requires all hospitals to provide life-saving care to all patients. It's simple. You go to an emergency room, they have to treat your emergency, including abortion care for women. Emergencies happen all the time. Women will get turned away at the emergency room door. In fact, they're getting turned away now as we speak. And if the Supreme Court overturns this law, make no mistake, women will die. This could be your wife. This could be your daughter, your sister, your mother, your friend. And you never know. You never know when this emergency could happen to somebody that you love. EMTALA saves lives, period. And so this is just another attempt by anti-choice extremists to control women's bodies. Let me be clear. We, all of us here, and our Democratic colleagues, won't let them. We won't let them. Nevadans sent me here to the Senate to fight for them and their rights. In their states, they were sent to fight for the rights of women. And as long as I'm here, as long as we are here, and the Senate Democrats remain in the majority, we will stand up for women's reproductive freedoms and block any attempt to pass a restrictive abortion ban that will hurt women. Senator Murray.
Well said. Thank you. Thank you to everyone. We're happy to take a couple questions. Yes.
Thank you. So Tina Smith said last week that she plans to introduce a bill to the full House, which you mentioned at the beginning, in the coming days, was her wording. Is such a legislation something that Senate Democrats and leadership would prioritize and potentially bring for a vote?
Well, let me make it very clear. Our Department of Justice has made it very clear that Comstock does not apply. I think we're all concerned about what could happen in a Trump administration, but at this point, I've not seen the legislation. We'll obviously review it, but our Department of Justice has said it does not apply. Yes.
Senator Murray, you mentioned that some of these agenda items wouldn't even require congressional approval, that the administration
Correct.
could take unilateral action or change regulations. What are, I guess, some of those issues that you're worried that a Trump White House could enact even in a divided government and kind of?
Well, I think pretty much everything we've talked about, if they change the regulations through fiat through making mifepristone illegal, I mean, I can list you all kinds of things, but I will tell you that we aren't going to let that happen. We're going to be here. We're going to fight back. Yes.
Thank you. It is very easy to blame another branch for this, especially as we approach the anniversary of this Dobbs ruling. But why weren't Senate Democrats, House Democrats, able to whip enough votes to codify this before this happened?
Well, as someone who's been here a long time, fighting for women's rights, I can tell you that every time we said there's a possibility, we need to be ready, I was told, don't worry, Supreme Court will never overturn this. I mean, constantly throughout, priorities and setting up, don't worry, it will. And now we know. We know that a Trump administration put judges in place that overturned Roe, and we're here to tell you, never again. We are fighting back. We're looking forward. We're doing everything we can to protect women's rights, and we will be here to block anything that the Trump administration tries to do. But voters need to be aware of that.
You might not have the votes to codify Roe into law, but you may have the votes to codify exceptions like rape, incest, woman's life. Is that something you would consider down the road?
We are going to, as soon as we get the majority and a Democrat in the White House and a Democratic majority in the House, restore Roe. Yes.
So the Trump campaign has put out statements suggesting that Project 2025, the Project 2025 agenda should not be considered official Trump stance. How confident are you that the agenda will become true if
Well, the Project 25 was written by people who were in a former Trump administration who will likely be in that Trump administration again. It was written by all of the Republicans out there who will be part of that administration. I'm not going to sit back and go, oh, believe Trump. I
How
don't
many
know who.
Republicans have rejected it?
Yeah, tell us that.
Has a single Republican rejected?
And better yet, as a single Republican voted to protect the right to contraception and protect the right to IVF, not one.
Well, one.
Two of them
Two.
denied
Excuse me,
exception.
two.
Yes.
Excuse me.
Yep.
All right. Thank
Slim
you all.
pickings.
Thank you so much.